In fact, if the conversation isn't engaging, then that's a sign that you're not having a conversation. And that's a really useful thing to know too, because here's another thing I could tell you that if you take to heart will save you an awful lot of grief and misery. If you're talking to someone and they're not listening, shut up. Just stop. It's like you could tell if they're not listening, and if they're not listening, quit saying words. You'll just feel like a fool anyways, because it's like you're throwing ping pong balls against a brick wall. You know, you're not getting anywhere. If they're not listening, that's a sign that the situation isn't set up to allow you to progress on the path that you're choosing. And so then you have to stop and you think, okay, well, what's going on here? Why is the person not listening? You know, am I being too forceful? Do they not understand what I'm saying? Is it too much about me? Do they want to talk? What's going on? Maybe they don't want to be here. There's all sorts of possibilities, but that's when you have to wake up past what it is that you're trying to impose on the situation and explore and see what's there. And that's way more interesting than trying to impose your viewpoint. Another thing is that if you're talking to someone, you know, I like to talk to people whose political beliefs are very different from mine, because I can't really understand how someone's political beliefs can be really different than mine, you know, because I've got kind of a coherent representation of my beliefs. But it's very interesting to talk to people who radically differ, because they'll tell you things that you haven't considered. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it's much more informative to walk away from a conversation having learned something that you didn't know than it is having won the stupid argument which you can't win anyways. And that's especially the case when you're dealing with people who are close to you that you will have around for the rest of your life. You cannot win an argument with them. Because all that'll happen is if you win, they'll get you back. Sooner or later. They won't listen to you the next time you have something to talk about. Or they'll get resentful and then they won't be helpful. You just can't win an argument with someone that you will have repeated contact with. What you can do, however, is you can have a conversation that's a real conversation, and maybe you can come to terms about the thing that you're discussing, and that's negotiation. You know, it's like, well, what do you want? But you have to really want to know. It's like, we're having an argument. Okay, what is it that I would have to do, because we're having this argument, what would I have to do in order to satisfy you? You know, and then the other person will think, well, there's nothing you can do to satisfy me because, you know, I'm so mad at you. It's like, that's not helpful. The other person has to think, okay, what are the conditions for my satisfaction? You know, so maybe, you know, your partner says, you're not paying enough attention to me. It's like, all right, what do you want? Exactly. You know, do you want to talk for 15 minutes at breakfast? Or do you want to talk for 20 minutes at lunch? Or do you want to spend an hour at night watching TV? Or like, do you want me to act differently when I come home and I'm at the door? It's like, you're feeling unattended to. What do you want? Well, then they'll say, well, if you love me, you should be able to figure that out. Yeah, that's wrong, because you're stupid. You won't be able to figure that out, because, you know, what the hell do you know? So the other person, unless they want to corner you into just being the kind of loser who can't figure things out, which is why are they with you then, you know, they need to think about that. It's like, oh, what is it that I want from this person? What would constitute more attention? Right? And that's making the argument much more high resolution. And then it gives the other person a chance to actually respond. And then you have to allow your partner to be a moron, because of course they are. So once you tell them what you want, you have to let them do it badly like 10 times, because they're never going to do it right the first time. So sometimes when I've helped people sometimes with marital problems, and one of the things I often recommend is that they go on a date. You know, they take each other away from their home where the kids are usually, or maybe not, maybe they don't have kids, it doesn't matter. And they do something that's just focused on each other. You know, and of course, first of all, they tell me they don't want to do that. It's stupid. It's like, it isn't, by the way. It's not stupid. It's like, oh, you don't want to go out and have an enjoyable time with your partner. You think your relationship's going to survive when all you do is snipe at each other and do horrible things together. It's like, well, no, that's not going to work. So then they'll finally say, okay, we'll go on a date. They'll both look disgusted by the whole idea. And then they go, and it's like, it's just miserable, right? Like one person says something to the other that immediately sets them off when they're out on the date because they're kind of mad about going anyways. And then they come back and go, well, that just didn't work and we're never going to do it again. It's like, no. So you're telling me you're never going to go out and do something enjoyable with your partner again because it didn't work very well. It's like, people don't think about it, you know. It's like, so maybe when you take your partner out and you haven't been getting along, it takes you like 10 times before you have a relatively okay time. But 10 times, if you're going to go out with them, let's say, I don't know, let's say you go out with them every 2 weeks, it's 25 times, and let's say you're going to be with them for 30 years, if you manage to, you know, get your act together. So that's 30 times 25, so that's 750 times. So if you practice 10 times, then you might be able to have 740 good times out together. You know, and that's an underestimate. So 10 times of practicing is hardly a problem for that kind of return. So